Hello, my name is Navid, and this is my ruins moment. My older sister was sitting in the living room and my mom was bawling her eyes out in the kitchen. My older sister said, "Mom, who's the man standing in the living room?" My mom looked over and she saw Jesus standing in our living room in Iran. And what had happened was she described him to me as a man with a white beard, white silky hair. He was wearing a gold crown, a pure gold crown, and his face was shining. So yeah, she basically experienced Jesus like that. And at the time my dad was actually Muslim, so he couldn't know about any of this, or else it would lead to things that we don't want to know about. So she convinced him to move to Australia. They moved to Australia and she told my dad about it. He saw her baptism and everything and they were fine with it until family issues in Iran. And at this time we were in Sydney, and they ended up divorcing because of family issues and religious issues. After they divorced, my dad, he really went down a dark path. He was doing things that he shouldn't be doing, and he was with the wrong people. He was doing the wrong things, and it got to a point where he had a dream and he encountered God through his dream. After that dream, he went to my mom, and my mom converted him to Christianity, and then they eventually got remarried. I was being surrounded with miracles happening everywhere, with my mom seeing Jesus in the kitchen, in the living room, my older sister encountering Christ, and my dad soon later encountering Christ in his life. But I wanted to have my God moment. I wanted to have my moment where I would experience God, but that wasn't gonna happen until God's timing was right. I was in year 6 going into year 7, and I was going through a really dark time in my life. I was questioning if God was real. I was questioning if he was actually there, because I never truly experienced him. So it got to a point where I just fully drifted away from God. I wasn't thinking about him in my everyday life, and it was just a really dark time for me. I was dealing with depression. I was dealing with anxiety. I was also going through suicidal thoughts. There was a time in my life where I was actually on the verge of killing myself. And my mom walked in and she stopped me from actually doing it. And since that time, my mom started taking me to church, started growing me closer to God. I knew I was separated from God and I wanted to fix that. But with social issues and not having friends, it ended up getting to a point where I completely drifted away from God. And then it got to a point where we were sitting, it was not the week before Easter, it was a day before Easter. And on that day before Easter, my mum was like, we should go to this church. And I didn't want to go to that church. I didn't want to go to church anymore. I was separated from God. And because I didn't want to go to church, my mum had to force me to go. So on that Sunday morning, we went to church on Easter, and it was near the end. It was during the time where they were talking about giving life to God and giving your life to Jesus. And the pastor, he mentioned people that were like separated from God but wanted to come back to him. And I was like, what? That's literally me. Like, what are you, like, who told you this, right? And basically I gave my life to God that day, and since I gave my life to God that day, everything was going uphill, everything was going well. I started making friends, I started growing in the community around me, and basically, yeah, and it was a really great time in my life. I like to refer to it as my prime. It was definitely one of my prime moments in my life with God. When I had nothing else to turn to, when I had no one else to turn to, I had one person to turn to, and that was God.